Are those GLP-1 medications that everybody's taking fixing metabolism or just quieting it down, like the food noise? My name is Dr. Scott Scher, and let's get into it today. Imagine this scenario. You start a GLP-1 medication. For the first time in a long time, food isn't running the show. You're not constantly thinking about it. You're not negotiating with yourself all day long for the next meal. It feels easier. And then the question shows up, is this actually fixing something being on these medications, or is it just turning something off temporarily? This is a very good question that you're asking, because these drugs are blockbuster drugs because the companies hope that you never learn what I'm about to tell you. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to walk through what actually changes in your body on these medications, why things feel quieter, and what that really means, and how to tell the difference between real metabolic improvement and just reduced signal. Because if you understand that distinction, you stop second guessing what's happening in your own body. Most of these medications, most people don't stay on them for more than a couple years. Why? Well, if they're at the place where they're trying to lose weight with these medications, sometimes there can be side effects as a result of that. And as a result, people stop taking them. What kind of side effects? Well, there are many, but certainly the major ones are going to be the GI system just slows down. So if you're not looking at this from a metabolic perspective, there really is no end goal. You're going to be on these medications for the rest of your life. So what can we do? Is that the right thing? Maybe in some cases, but in other cases, maybe it's a reframe here. So the reframe here is really about, for many of us, fear. If I needed this to feel normal, this medication, what does that really say about me? Not just physically, but whether your body was somehow working against you and your mind as well. And now you're holding on to two things at once, relief that things feel better, uncertainty about why it was so hard before, and whether this new version of things, this new version of you, is something you can really rely on, right? So most conversations about GLP-1s turn into debates, good versus bad, natural versus artificial, discipline versus medication, but they don't actually help you understand your body. A more useful place to start is what changed on these and what didn't, because that's what's going to tell you whether something is being rebuilt or just managed. Now, it's important to understand what's happening on these medications. Let's walk through this a little bit here. GLP-1 is a hormone your body already produces in your gut. It helps coordinate how full you feel, how your blood sugar responds to food, how quickly your stomach empties, how rewarding food feels in your brain. Actually, it's not just food that we're thinking. It's actually other things that you crave and you might have even a proclivity for an addiction for, even like alcohol and drugs, which is pretty interesting with these medications. When you take the GLP-1 medication, several things shift. First is that you have slower gastric emptying. So food leaves your stomach much slower. You feel food and you feel full sooner. You stay full longer because the stomach empties slower. So it also acts on appetite signals in the brain. Hunger signals are reduced. Food thoughts are less frequent. The urgency to eat drops. And then it changes how you feel about your food, the reward itself. So cravings actually decrease. Less pull towards highly processed foods, interestingly enough. I was just out with one of my patients for lunch a couple of days ago, and he ate half of his meal. And this is a guy that was eating a ton of food before. So it is very interesting that it's not only helping with sort of gut signals, but also brain signals as well. In addition, it does improve insulin response after meals. There's fewer sharp spikes. There's fewer crashes that drive rebound hunger. This is probably because, at least in part, that the stomach is emptying slowly, so there's not a huge load of food that's getting to your small intestine very quickly. So yes, food noise, it gets quieter. But all this describes what has changed. It doesn't automatically explain why things were louder before. Why were you having such a difficult time before you started the medication? The easy conclusion? If I'm less hungry, my metabolism must be fixed. But that skips the context here, because before this, your body may have been adapting to irregular eating patterns, poor sleep disrupting hormone signaling, chronic stress increasing energy demand, blood sugar swings driving repeat hunger. These are all things that we need to address to optimize our health, whether or not we're on a GLP-1 medication. So the intensity you felt may not have been dysfunction. It may have been because your body was trying to keep up. Our body's always trying to stay in balance here. If you don't get enough sleep, you're going to eat more. That's classic. I remember when I was in medical school and when I was in my residency, when I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was starving. This is because your body's trying to keep up. If you're up more, you need more energy to fuel you. And so you have to remember that these medications can be very helpful, but they're not solving the major issues metabolically, at least entirely. Sure, it can help with insulin resistance. It can help with weight loss, which is going to help to some degree. But if you're irregularly eating, if your sleep is poor, if you have chronic stress, these are all things that are not going to get better on these medications. So what is the correct sequence? A more accurate way to think about it is this. These medications change how strongly your body sends signals, but long-term metabolic stability depends on things like things I talk about all the time: energy consistent, regular, sufficient intake with fewer extremes, and optimizing mitochondrial function, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and cofactors. See what's going on under the hood, not just how you feel, which really is the most important part, but also what's going on underneath as well. Nervous system load is the next piece. This is a huge piece. Chronic stress increases drive for quick energy. This is why before GLP-1s, you wanted to eat all the time when you were stressed. If you're less stressed, you're less going to need food all the time to get that dopaminergic hit. Food is like a dopamine hit. It's like scrolling on your phone. A little bit of food is going to go a little way to give you a little bit of dopamine as you're going. So you need to take off the nervous system load. GLP-1s notwithstanding. Poor sleep as well. So this is the next one. Poor sleep raises hunger hormones, as I mentioned. It reduces insulin sensitivity. So yes, you can go on a GLP-1 and lose some weight, but if you're not getting enough sleep, this is still going to catch up to you, GLP-1 medication or not. And then, blood sugar stability is a big one, right? So if you are on these medications, you get fewer large swings in blood sugar, you get more predictable energy, but you can do this as well and understand that this doesn't really require the medication, or at least you can teach yourself when you're on this medication how it feels to have a stable blood sugar. So really the GLP-1s, what they really do is create space in the system. What determines long-term change is what gets stabilized while things are quieter. This is the key of this whole conversation, this video. What gets stabilized while things are quieter? Now you have the opportunity. Your system now is not under as much load because you've stabilized on the GLP-1s with the various ways that I've just described. Now it's time to optimize your nutrition, optimize your sleep timing and light exposure, regulate your stress, regulate your glucose and watch your glucose if you can, and also get your exercise. Without exercise, you are going to lose muscle mass on GLP-1. Some of the newer ones may be less, but still, you're going to drop weight, but you're going to drop muscle. If you drop muscle, then you have lack of muscle, and that's something called sarcopenia, which is extreme risk for things like falling and breaking a hip. Not a good thing if you're an older person. So this is the opportunity. This is what I talk about with my patients that need to lose weight. GLP-1s will give the opportunity to reframe not only your physiology, which is what I've been describing here, but also your psychology around food. I have a friend of mine that runs a whole company that gives GLP-1s, and she is absolutely emphatic that everybody needs to join a support group. Everybody needs to join a group that helps them psychologically retrain their conversations and their feelings and their engagement around food. Remember, all these things don't work in isolation in the sense that you have to really thinking about these things in a more holistic way, but you can start with the low-hanging fruit for you. Like, what are some of the things you can change while you now have a space in the system to do it? So instead of asking, are these GLP-1s fixing or silencing something, try to ask, now that things feel easier, what actually changed in my body and what still needs support? Hunger change, what about energy? Sleep, stress, daily rhythms, because those are the pieces that determine whether this holds or fades. Because again, most people will stop these medications. They will stop them from any number of reasons. It's a huge expense for many people. It is an injection, although they're changing to oral ones, that's true. And they do have side effects like gastric emptying, for example, although that can be mitigated, right? Some people are going down to very, very low doses of these to try to get the food noise to go away without causing the satiety issues and things like that. There may be some roles for this. Certainly in longevity settings, I'm seeing this happen more and more. But I think the jury's still out here a little bit, right? Because in the end, what's most important is our own psychology and how we can optimize our mind and our body, given the space that GLP-1s can give many of us. Over the long term, we don't know about long-term effects of being on these medications. It's just been around for several years. So we just really don't know right now. And so with my patients, I always say, look, these medications can be great in the short term, but let's see if we can get you off of them in the long term and retrain your mind and retrain your body in the process. So feeling better matters. That's not something to dismiss. I 100% agree with that, right? But it's not the full picture because your body wasn't trying to work against you before. It was responding to what it was dealing with. It was trying to balance itself to